Hi, I'm Amanda Morrell with interest.co.nz, and I'm here today with one of our double shot interviews with Angus Dale Jones. Angus is the Director of Supervision for the soon-to-be defunct New Zealand Securities Commission, which was established in 1997. 1997, that's correct?
About 30 years ago, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
right. And so the roles and responsibilities of the Commission will be assumed by the new Financial Markets Authority, is that correct?
That's right, from April.
And that's going to be happening very soon. You've been specifically tasked with overseeing the implementation of the regulations as it's going to affect the financial advisory sector.
Yes.
So you're here today to talk to us about that. So there's several things happening in this space, but March 31st is a significant deadline. Can you just explain to us what's going on then?
Well, we've got two pieces of legislation. A piece of legislation that requires all financial advisors to register, and another piece of legislation that requires advisors to follow certain codes of conduct. That first piece of legislation takes effect on the 31st of March, so every single advisor needs to be registered on a public register. So from the 31st of March onwards, anybody can check to see whether their financial advisor is registered.
Okay. And so what kind of compliance have you had so far? Because there's several adjustments and qualifications that people are having to upgrade for.
Well, it's very much a last-minute push at the moment.
Yeah.
We're desperately trying to encourage financial advisors to get onto the register in time. For some financial advisors, particularly those dealing with investments or providing an investment planning service to clients, they have to meet some competence requirements, which means they have to pass some exams and demonstrate that they've given advice to a certain level. So that's a lot of work for advisors. So there's several hundred advisors still going through that process ahead of the 31st of March.
Are you a bit disappointed with the numbers to date, or are you on track with what you thought?
No, the numbers are good overall, and financial advisors are spread over different roles. There's some advisors who are individually registered and licensed, other advisors who are working for organisations where we register the organisation, and the numbers coming through the organisations are good. It's just getting the last minute exams done for these advisors. We've also deliberately left a 3-month period between the end of March and the end of June before that second piece of legislation I mentioned, the Financial Advisors Act, is up and running. So the full force of the legislation imposing new requirements on financial advisors comes into effect from the 1st of July. So there's 3 months for us to get through that backlog of people who make their application just at the last minute.
Okay, there's been speculation that there'll be a bit of a cleansing going on for those who don't get all the paperwork done on time or for whatever reason.
A lot of advisors have used this as an opportunity either to refresh, so go and get qualifications and upgrade their skills, or to make the decision to leave the profession. Some other advisors have decided not to practice on their own but go to a firm where they get the support of the firm with systems and procedures and training. So there's quite a large reshifting of who does what, but we think that's for the best interest of professionalism of advisors in New Zealand.
Okay, I imagine you've got quite a few financial advisors out in the Christchurch area. Is there some exceptions being made for them in light of the earthquake?
We're very concerned about the impact on the earthquake on advisors who were in their final stages of preparing. So we've made special allowance for them. We've got a note up on our website to say as long as they go to the register and register their names, they can tell us by putting uploading a letter. There's a facility for uploading a letter, explaining their circumstances, and then we will give them an extension for their competence requirements and the other requirements that they need to satisfy. So we will do everything we possibly can to make sure that they're taken care of.
Yeah, a lot of this is directed, or the detail anyhow, at the financial advisors themselves, but the intention is that this is going to have a better outcome for the public. So how will this change?
It's all about professionalism, and it's all about financial advisors putting their client first. You'll be aware that over the last 2 years, as we've implemented the Financial Advisors Act, one of the most important things has been the writing of a code of conduct. And in fact, New Zealand is a world leader in this, having a whole of industry code of conduct for financial advisors. And that's been a great success, and that sets brand new standards for financial advisors in a code that people feel a wide degree of ownership of. And the exams that advisors are sitting are based on that code, so people have to prove that they know the new code. But for consumers, it means that when they deal with an authorised financial advisor, they know that they're dealing with somebody who has to obey that code of conduct, who's registered, and for whom there are procedures to follow up if things go wrong.
Yeah. And will this bring us in line with other like OECD countries, for example, Australia? You've done some work over there?
Yeah, the reason New Zealand put in the Financial Advisors Act is because we were a little bit behind the game in terms of regulating the financial sector. In fact, financial advisors were not regulated in New Zealand, which put us at an international disadvantage. But now I think we've leapfrogged internationally. We've got a great code of conduct. We've got modern educational standards that are being enforced on all advisors. So, yes, we were behind the ball game, but now we're right on the lead line.
Okay. What kind of questions should the investing public be asking themselves when they're having an encounter with somebody who works in this area?
Well, the very first thing you can do is go and check that your advisor is registered. And the advisor is either registered as themselves or the entity that they work with, which is called a qualifying financial entity, is registered. Yeah. So check on the register. Secondly, talk to the advisor about what the advisor can give advice on. Can the advisor, for example, only give advice on the products of their company, or can they give advice on all products? Do they deal only with investments, or can they deal with investments and credit products and mortgages and so forth? So those basic introductory questions gives you a feel about the advisor. And then, of course, a very relevant question is to ask what incentives are at play for the advisor. So are there any conflicts of interest? Does the advisor, for example, get commission payments from the products they sell? Those sorts of questions give a consumer a very good idea of who they're dealing with.
At the same time, there are some built-in protections for consumers who might not know what kind of questions to ask. The onus is ultimately on financial advisors to front up with that kind of thing?
Yes, so the code sets out the things that advisors must do. So all authorised financial advisors must follow the requirements of the code of conduct. So, for example, they need to make sure that the products that they sell are suitable for their clients. They must put their clients' interests first, and there are various steps regarding what they must document and explain to their clients. So, yes, it's helpful if consumers ask some searching questions of their advisors, but there are now professional standards at play that require the advisor to interact in a particular way with their clients.
Okay. Another new feature of this legislation is this compulsion to be part of a dispute resolution panel, and also there's a disciplinary committee that's been. Can you just talk about the difference between those two?
Yes. So every single financial service provider in New Zealand now has to be a member of a dispute resolution scheme. So that means if a consumer has a dispute with their financial service provider, there is somebody independent that they can go to deal with that dispute. So it's a much cheaper and more efficient mechanism than going through a court process. People can still go through the court process, but this is to make it more efficient. So you're not just reliant on the person you're dealing with, the advisor you're dealing with, to sort out the problem. If, however, that doesn't solve your problem and you've got a more fundamental concern that your advisor hasn't dealt with you professionally, there is a panel now called the Disciplinary Committee that looks at the professional behaviour of advisors. And anybody can complain to the Securities Commission, and as you say, that's going to be replaced by the Financial Markets Authority. And the Disciplinary Committee hangs off the Financial Markets Authority, and they will hear cases that arise from complaints people have made about the professional conduct of advisors. So the dispute resolution scheme is all about sorting out the transaction that you're not too happy about. The disciplinary committee is to take action against advisors who don't behave professionally.
Okay, and that's all going to take effect come June 1st?
Yes, so a lot of this legislation is being phased in at the moment, but from the end of this month, people will be able to check on the register. That's a major thing. Everybody who's on the register is definitely a member of a dispute resolution scheme, because the Companies Office doesn't accept them onto the register until they're a member of a dispute resolution scheme. So those two planks are already in place. Okay.
Well, many investors, I mean, it's inherently risky, the whole investment sphere. Is this the kind of thing where investors who lose money can go and complain that they've lost their money, or what's this meant to guard against?
And in some cases it might be helpful. The financial market is all about taking risks of a certain nature, and if you take a properly informed risk and you lose money, there's nothing that anybody can do about that. That's just part of the process of investing and making a risk-return decision. But if your loss is based on poor advice or bad advice, then absolutely either the dispute resolution process or the disciplinary committee might well be able to assist. The dispute resolution procedure might indeed get your money back. It's less direct if your advisor is disciplined, but it might be easier then to prove a court process if disciplinary action has been successfully taken against the advisor.
Okay, so taking into account the whole nature of the reforms that are coming in, do you think that were they in place several years ago when we saw the losses coming into the financial companies sector, would that have minimized the impact that people?
To the extent that those losses arose out of bad advice, it might have helped. But in general, with investments in finance companies, there were many people who invested in finance companies without going to a financial advisor. And as a nation, we're not particularly good at going to a financial advisor and getting help. We all go to the doctor to get help with our health, but we don't necessarily automatically think about either going to a financial advisor or even thinking of paying a financial advisor for assistance. So in some ways, getting properly trained intermediaries to assist might prevent future occurrences of things like the finance company crisis, because hopefully if financial advisors obey the code and follow the code, they will take their client situation into account when giving advice and not just pool all of their investments in one part of the economy.
Okay. 5 years from now, what do you think the financial services sector is going to look like in New Zealand?
Well, I hope there's much greater uptake of the use of financial advisors. As I say, just like we use doctors, let's use financial advisors. I also hope there's much greater clarity on the payment of commissions. That is starting to happen, particularly in the investment space. But those incentives on advisors do distort the advice that is given, and I think it would be much easier for consumers to trust their advisor if they knew that there weren't financial and other incentives for advice to be given in a particular direction. So those are two big things that I hope sort of settle down in the next 5 years. Getting the economy working well and getting everybody participating in the local economy is critically important, and financial advisors are the intermediaries that play a central role in that.
Okay. All right, Angus Dale-Jones, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Amanda Morrell with interest.co.nz. This has been another one of our Double Shot interviews.